Why don't we not teach history in schools? What do you mean? Oh, is this the absurd idea that to not have statues to racists is to get rid of our history? Are you bringing that into the chat right now? Okay, well, let me talk about that in a sec. Okay, so super important to teach history. Extremely important because in order to understand the world, you need to understand where it came from. And I mean really, not in like some... That's not to say that it needs to be glorified, which is what statues are about. It's that it needs to be taught. And if history is taught properly and people have an understanding of what we did, and everybody in the US, what we did collectively, even if your ancestors weren't here for it, we're all benefiting for it in some way. You need to understand that, and if not, you're gonna make dumb statements like the idea that a statue that glorifies slavery or segregation or something is like an important part of our history, when it is absolutely not. These are not things that even, or from like Civil War era. Almost all of those statues are from the very, very racist 1920s, 1950s to 60s. And the point of them was that they were racist. The whole reason was to make sure that black people knew where they stood. Whole point of those statues. So it's not to get rid of history, it's to get rid of glorifying things. I don't want to glorify that stuff anymore. I hope that you don't. To the extent that you feel that it's your heritage sucks. Alright? If your heritage includes people who fought in the Civil War, I mean, I don't know you, right? I'm just saying this is it's a common thing that I hear. Then yeah, your heritage sucks. Your ancestors were big jerks. I have family from the South, and their ancestors almost certainly fought in the Civil War. It's not recorded that far back. Like, I don't know what they did for sure, but like almost certainly. It's just knowing where they lived at the time. I don't want to have anything to do with them. I mean, it's very important to remember them so that we know to not do what they did. I'm like barely paying attention to this match. It's super important to not make those same mistakes anymore. Yeah, what we consider history too often is actually just narratives that were invented later. And it's important to know about those histories, those narratives. Those narratives themselves are historical, and that's part of what should be taught. So for example, about the Civil War, you should not just be taught that it happened, but also that after the Civil War ended, the South exerted very strong cultural influence across the rest of the country, and things like the lost cause were allowed to develop. That philosophy, that misunderstanding of history as the Civil War being something that was noble and not just about slavery. It's just a story that was told later. So it's important to know that, because that, if you didn't know that, and if you just are aware of the Civil War having happened, and then you're sort of marinating in this world in which there's the lost cause ideology, you may be seduced into thinking that the Civil War was a lost cause and it was noble. Oh, my ancestors fought for it. You need to know that the idea of it being a noble thing and not just about slavery was invented later to try to justify it to future generations very explicitly. Very explicitly. It was intentionally taught to kids to confuse them about why things happened. And it's spread. I mean, it's pervasive now. And so you get people complaining about statues being taken down, misunderstanding history. Those statues don't need to be destroyed. I think it's interesting as an idea for people to come up with, to have them be in museums, and those museums should discuss their history. This statue was put up in 1920 whatever, and it's part of a run of 100 different statues, or 100 manufactured statues that were all exactly the same. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. There was actually a factory in the North that would produce statues that the South then used as part of this lost cause ideology, like statues to Johnny Rebs and whatever. So put that statue in the museum and give it the context of this was created by Southern racists to justify something that was terrible, and it was produced by Northerners, probably also racist, but people who just wanted to capitalize on Southern racism and didn't think it was a big deal. That's the context. And it's really important. If it's just out in your park and you're on a walk and you see a statue to whatever, you miss the context. And so you miss history. And instead, you're sort of taught to glorify things that were not good at all.
Round 1. Fight.
Literal traitors, yeah.